This is Rob Carbone, and you're listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. What is going on, guys? This is Rob Carbone, coming at you with another episode of BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Tonight we're going to do episode 90. We are on episode 90 already of BD4. So guys, thank you so much for following along. Thanks for keeping track all this time. And if you haven't followed my page on Facebook or on Twitter, even be sure to follow that on at NY Sports Talk RC, which is the handle for both of those pages. And you can follow my Instagram account at Rob J Carbone. And 90 episodes in, it would be great to get even more subscribers. I appreciate all the ones I already have, but if you haven't done so, be sure to go and sub on all the major platforms, iTunes, Google, SoundCloud, Spotify, Radio Public, and there's plenty more, YouTube, where the video cast is, and plenty more, which is located on my website. Just go to my website, guys. You can go to my website at nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com, and there's going to be a page called Outlets. Just click on that, and it takes you to everywhere you need to be, and where to reach me, how to reach me, blah blah blah. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in all this time. I appreciate that. So tonight we're gonna dive into episode 90 with what could be the final Knicks podcast on until the off season starts, and that's gonna be a while, obviously. So I figured, the season for the Knicks, at least, is pretty much over. There's little, slim to zero chance that when the NBA does resume, if it does resume, that the Knicks are going to be playing games. There's a good chance they go right into the playoffs at that point. So, you could pretty much say goodbye to your 2020 New York Knicks. And honestly, guys, it's an easy season to say goodbye to, right? The Knicks just played terrible basketball. They underperformed, which is hard to ask because the expectations weren't for them to perform very well to begin with, right? All I was asking was for proper player development, a competent front office, and, just win 30 games maybe, 30 to 35 games. But they couldn't do that. They play below their expectations. And the Knicks, so for this final report card, obviously I'm going to be grading everybody, but also starting with the Knicks as a team. And I gave them a D- because, again, man, listen, at 21-45, which is a winning percentage of .318, with a record like that, after you spent all this money in free agency, misfiring on Durant, misfiring on Kyrie Irving, misfiring on all the other superstars and all-stars and solid players out there, and you ended up salvaging it with a bunch of misfits, and that didn't work. So the winning and losing part was not good. The Knicks won 21 out of 66 games. Just terrible basketball, uncompetitive basketball, an incoherent brand of basketball. And here's the thing, they were bad, but they're so Knicks that they weren't even bad enough to kind of put themselves in a better position in terms of the lottery in the draft this upcoming summer, or whenever it happens to be now. They're not even in the top four for the worst record in the tankings. So it sucks to be in this position where it's kind of middle here for the Knicks. But like I said, yeah, D- because the winning and losing thing was just a mess. Couldn't win, couldn't lose enough. It's one of those interesting scenarios. And the big thing here, though, I think everybody should look past the winning and losing part and just realize that they got a D- because they simply couldn't realize what their plan should have been and what their goal should have been. The player development is what I'm trying to hint at here. The player development this year for the Knicks, it was awful. It was very, very bad. Under David Fizdale, under Mike Miller, these guys just regressed. If not regressed, they remained the same from last season. Very few have gone upwards. And just the youth of this team, the guys who were building around, the building blocks, the young foundation, they just didn't play enough, or they didn't play at all, really. We prioritize veterans who aren't going to be here past next season at the very, very most. And we didn't prioritize our kids enough. It's just, and because of that, some of them have regressed. Some of them have just not grown at all. Kevin Knox took a step backwards. We're going to get to his grade. Damian Dotson, up and down, didn't really see much of a, consistent rotation. Alonzo Trier, same deal with Dotson. Wasn't in that rotation enough. Frank Ntilikina didn't really improve much, but the Knicks didn't do him a service by, making him back up Elfrid Payton and at times Dennis Smith Jr., who also just didn't do much. So we're going to talk about all of those guys soon. But just in terms of player development, not good. We're taking a step backwards there. We didn't even get to see guys like Iggy. Even if he was thrown out there, it was in garbage time within the last couple, 5 or 6 minutes of a game when the Knicks were down 30 already. Kenny Wooten never got a shot. Lamar Peters, etc. We just didn't get enough of that rebuild where the Knicks would actually do what a competent NBA team would do. Where most young teams that aren't winning many games, they would play their kids. You look at the Suns, you look at the Grizzlies, and you could just go on and on. At least those rebuilding teams do it correctly by, throwing their youth out there and letting them play, letting them gain chemistry together, and letting them make their mistakes, and not yanking them even if they do make mistakes, letting them learn and grow. But the Knicks didn't do that. The Knicks simply just tried to play their veterans. Maybe it was that playoff mandate. And it's going to sound repetitive tonight because we just had a show the other night where we talked about this a little bit, but didn't really go into as much detail. But, yeah, it's just frustrating, man, because it's the simplest thing in the world, right? Player development for a young rebuilding team is, you'd think that you can at least be average in that category, and the Knicks were simply failures in that category. One thing I guess you could say they did a little bit of a better job of this season was gaining some sort of stability in that front office. Now, there was some drama, obviously the unnecessary drama with Steve Stout on First Take, then obviously later in the season, more recently, the whole Jim Dolan, Spike Lee altercation, and yet maybe a few other things as well, because it's the Knicks. But, however, you do look at it, and I think overall, in terms of just talking about gaining stability in the front office, the Knicks took a step upwards there, because they did fire Steve Mills, who was absolutely terrible in his, tenure here. And they hired guys like Steve Stout, and they hired guys like Leon Rose. So they got two new faces up in that front office who sound promising. They've really not done much yet, and to their credit, they can't do much yet. But at least they've done something to where they're showing us they're trying to change upstairs, right? Because that's where it all starts. That's where everything starts. It's not just coaching. It's the main thing here. That's the issue with the Knicks is that front office. And at least they've shown some kind of progression by firing Steve Mills and hiring a new branding guru and then hiring a new chairman or president in Leon Rose. So that's good. But overall, you look at the Knicks product on the court, Didn't win. Didn't lose enough to get in better positioning for the draft. Player development was horse shit. Didn't really do much. So I gave him a D minus. A D minus for the season because they just simply failed. And that's it's pretty simple when you talk about that stuff. So I don't know. It's unfortunate that we have to keep doing this, because it really says something about an organization when year after year after year it's the same issues that bother us. It says a lot. We'll be right back, guys. Hey guys, Rob Carbone here. Really quick, I just want to talk to you about Anchor. Anchor is a free podcast hosting site, and I say that again, it's a free podcast hosting site that will distribute your podcast for you to other platforms such as Spotify, Apple, Overcast, and all those websites. But here's the best part. Not only is it free, not only do they share it for you, but they will pay you for recording a podcast. They will pay you. And you can do it from your computer, from your phone. All you have to do is go to the Anchor app and download that, or go to their website, which is anchor.fm, to begin. It's everything you need. It is so convenient for podcasters like myself. So please, guys, go download the Anchor app or go to their website, anchor.fm, to begin. See you there. And so I guess we'll start off with our unfortunate starting point guard for this season, which was, for the most part, Elfrid Payton. Payton I gave a C, a flat C, just because, he is who he is, and he is practically who he's been for his entire career so far, which is an average backup point guard. He doesn't do much. His strengths are penetrating to the rim and kicking it out, getting his teammates involved by passing, but the issue here was, like most veterans, like most short-term players on this Knicks team, he was halting and stunting the growth of the Knicks foundation, of the young kids, once again. Him just out there, he throws out a lot of other players, and we're going to talk about that a little bit when we get into RJ Barrett. But Elfrid Payton, he played a lot of two-man game with Julius Randle, and at times that would freeze out a lot of other Knicks standing out, outside the arc just waiting for the ball. And he could not shoot, so he did nothing in terms of stretching the floor and spacing the floor. He's not much of a scorer, so he would drive and finish at the rim occasionally, but most of his game was just based off of passing and playing some okay defense. So Payton I gave a C. I don't think there's much else to say. I was just tired of watching him thrown out there every single day, and it made no sense to just start a point guard who's not going to be here again. Following the 2021 season, if anything, if he's still here by then. Reggie Bullock was the starting shooting guard for the later portion of the season, and I gave him a C-. I really wasn't impressed with what Reggie Bullock did for this Knicks team. I thought Bullock was very, mediocre. I didn't think he really provided much outside of occasionally getting hot from downtown. Some good defense, but really, I can't think of much else that Bullock did. He didn't shoot as well as Knicks fans would have hoped he shot, and didn't bring that presence from outside that was very much needed, and we hoped we would have gotten that from him when he returned from the back injury. But never really found a consistency with the Knicks, and that's why I gave Reggie Bullock a C-. And then I'm going to dive into RJ Barrett. Well, might as well just get right into him, and I've got a lot to say about RJ. Well, first of all, I loved the season. I know some Knicks fans maybe aren't as high on RJ Barrett as others, but I'm one of the Knicks fans I really appreciate what this kid has done for this Knicks team so far. I thought he had a strong rookie season. Excuse me. No, really, I did. I gave him a B, a straight B, because I thought, while he had some ups and downs, overall he finished the season nicely, and he listen, man, he scored 14 points a night, gave them 5 rebounds and 3 assists while playing some very good defense. So first and foremost, I want to point out, before we even talk about his on-court stuff, his confidence out there, that stands out to me most. He never looks shook or anything like that, right? He has a very cool, calm, and collected demeanor out there, and we mentioned this on the show the other night, episode 89. But he does. He just doesn't look like he's ever shaken up out there. And to have poise like that, to have that kind of poise when you're a 19-year-old, you're a teenager, you're a teenage rookie, a 19-year-old in the NBA, to have a type of poise like that impresses me a lot. That's very impressive to me. And to me, that's also a sign of a clutch performer. Eventually, I think because he has that characteristic where he's not fazed by anything, I think that could make him a very clutch player down the stretch. But of course, he has some things to work on, like the jumper, to get that clutch gene. But we're going to talk about that in a sec. But I loved his confidence this season. I thought that was a big pro for R.J. Barrett. So I just wanted to get that out of the way first. But also, I thought his, before we even talk about his offense, a pretty underrated part of R.J. Barrett's game this season, in his first year in the NBA, was his defense and rebounding. Especially the defense, which was supposed to be a weakness. He wasn't a great defender at college in Duke, at Duke, but yeah, he wasn't really a great defender there. But this season, I honestly have to say, I thought it was a pretty underrated aspect. Everybody wants to talk about his offense, and we'll talk about that. But I thought, for the most part, R.J. Barrett played some above-average defense. I thought his on-ball defense in particular was very good. As a 6'6", 202-pound wing, he kept up with the quicker guards pretty well, and he rebounded pretty well, too. He had 5 rebounds a night out there. So I thought overall, when you talk defense, when you talk rebounding, people start to, they kind of forget about that when it comes to R.J. Barrett. But I love that. I love that he brought a nice defensive presence to this team at the wing position. Excuse me. Also, I liked his shot creating, right? And I think that's the one thing that most Knicks fans will say about him, his ability to get to the rim. He's kind of already established an identity for himself, which is good. When you're a rookie and you've already established an identity, what you're good at most, that's pretty impressive to me. He's kind of relentless. That's a good word to use. That's a good term. He's relentless at attacking that rim. Like, he kind of reminded me, the way he could get to the rim off the bounce of a D-Wade type. Dwayne Wade, James Harden type. Just fearless and not afraid to take a hit and get to the rim with no fear at all, and aggressively just attacking that shit. And I loved what I saw from him in terms of that. Just off the bounce, getting to the rim, and he got a fair share of of his free throw attempts because of that as well. Obviously, he has to start hitting those, but as he grows older and as he becomes more efficient, he's going to be able to generate even more, some extra points at that free throw line, because it adds up. He's a very good penetrator. His ability to get to the rim and absorb contact, that's going to get him about 6, 7, 8 free throws a night, I think, eventually, as long as he keeps, continuing to grow. So, love the confidence, love the shot creating part, the defense and rebounding, the ability to draw the foul. A couple other things I like the off ball scoring. We want to talk about his on ball shot creating abilities, nice, but that's not necessarily to say that R.J. Barrett is ball dominant. He's very good at cutting, at scoring off the ball too. A lot of backdoor cuts. We've seen him, curl around screens and and catch and drive. We've seen a lot of good moments from R.J. Barrett, not just where he's has to have the ball in his hand. He's done a nice job scoring off the ball this season as well, I thought. I thought his passing was pretty good too. I understand that he wasn't no point guard out there, but I liked when the Knicks did especially down the stretch when I understood more, when he kind of started to establish that identity as a ball handler. I liked when the Knicks ran him as the number one point guard, as the point. They ran him at point a couple of times towards the end of the season, and I gotta say I like it. I like doing that because it kind of gets him used to playing with the ball in his hands, and that's what they need to do when he's your number one option. We're supposed to be your number one option, not Julius Randle. But I like when they ran R.J. Barrett at the point, and I thought he displayed some pretty good playmaking abilities. And then we can talk about his cons now. He had a B, but it could have been higher because of a couple things he did not do great at. We mentioned the shooting inefficiency. He was only 40%, 32%, and 61% when we're talking about field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and then free throw percentage. So that's got to improve. 40, 32, 61, not good. But again, it'll happen. He a lot of times, a lot of that was struggling to finish on the drive. In particular, it's going right that halts his efficiency. He's very good at going left, finishing with his left hand because that's his dominant hand, but he had some trouble going right. And I think, it's something that he can improve on, but it wasn't the only thing that he struggled with his efficiency with. I think he also needed to, eventually he's going to need to establish, listen, let's say it how it is, he needs an adequate mid-range and 3-point shot if he wants to be an all-star caliber, lottery pick down the line, I think if he doesn't do that, I've heard people compare him to DeMar DeRozan, his floor, but I've also heard some NBA freelance scout a couple days ago said, if RJ doesn't develop a jumper or a 3-point shot soon enough in 2-3 years, that he'll become a Rodney Hood, Kent Bazemore type. So he's not wrong, I don't think. I think it's something very important, especially in today's NBA. He's going to have to eventually develop a jumper, but listen, it's at least he has the ability to create space. Now, he may not be finishing with the jumpers, but the idea that he can create space so well to get off a jumper, right? He has a nice step back. Again, he doesn't finish all the time, but he has a nice step back to create that space. So it's one thing that's one thing I'm looking at here. I'm not, like I said, I'm not necessarily looking at efficiency numbers for a 19-year-old rookie yet. I just want to see the abilities, right? The ability to attack the rim doesn't always finish. The ability to create for that open jumper doesn't always finish. But it's the abilities that I liked seeing from him this season. But, he had some other issues as well. The tunnel vision, he had some tunnel vision. Criticized for it in college, and it kind of a little bit in the NBA here with the Knicks so far in his first season. A 2.6 assists to a 2.2 turnover per game ratio. Not the greatest, but, at the same time, you have to look at a lot of this as who he plays with, and we're going to talk about that in 1 second. But I do want to mention one more point I made on my notes. One last con I want to bring up is his defense. Now, his defense was good. I talked about his on-ball defense, but there were also times where defensively he would become disengaged and get caught ball watching a little too often, and that that kind of led to easy buckets for the opposing teams. But that's one thing I think, again, he'll learn to tune up in that area and hopefully fix. But I do want to say this. For the few cons that R.J. Barrett does have, while some of that, or a lot of that you can even say, is on him, you can also point to, the lineups, the spacing, and just the overall use has a lot to do with those deficiencies. A lot of times Fizdale, Miller, they would pair him with guys like Julius Randle and Elfrid Payton, even Portis, Gibson, etc. Just too much. Pairing him with guys like that, especially Randle and Payton, it clogs the paint because neither shoot well. It kills the spacing because of that too. And, because both of those guys, Randle, Payton, even Portis, they're all ball dominant, so it sacrifices R.J. Barrett's ball time. It forces him into spot-up situations where he's being used as a floor spacer. And, again, that's not who he is. So a lot of this has to do, a lot of the inefficiency he had, that he struggled with this season, RJ, a lot of that had to do with lineups that were thrown out there and who he was playing with. He wasn't necessarily being set up to succeed. They were kind of setting him up to fail a lot of the time, and that's where a lot of those forced shots, those tunnel vision type of plays came from, because the vets don't feed him nearly enough and not throughout the game enough. And, RJ Barrett's a guy, we saw it towards the end of the year, too, where you feed him early, he's going to thrive. You feed this guy early and you feed him throughout the game, give him a volume of shots, he'll get hot and he'll put up the numbers, man. He can do that. But a lot of the times when the Knicks share RJ Barrett with the veterans, it doesn't necessarily work that way. They don't necessarily feed him a lot. They didn't do that well. That's why I think, hopefully next year we see him paired more often with guys like Mitchell Robinson, Frankie Lakina, Kevin Knox, and all the other young kids on this team. I think he needs to play with them more to gain chemistry with those his fellow building blocks and to increase his efficiency down the line. So that did bother me, that he could have been even better this season had the Knicks learned to use him properly. But overall, again, I think he had a strong rookie season. You can't argue with a solid B for RJ Barrett. So we took a long time on him, but I'm sorry about that. But let's continue on. I also have what do I have? Julius Randle. I gave Julius, the starting power forward, a C+. I don't want to talk about Julius Randle for long because But I thought under David Fizdale, like the first 20-something games, I thought he was absolutely terrible. He was pathetic. He was hard to watch. It was unbearable. Then Mike Miller came along and he showed some signs. He wasn't great, but he was more consistent. He wasn't consistently terrible. He kind of went from consistently terrible to just inconsistent, which was technically a step up. But overall, it's the poor defense, the lazy defense, the lack of help defense at times, the recklessness, the low IQ, just the stupid decision making, and taking 3-point shots when you shouldn't be, turning it over in the post with that ridiculous spin move that he never really learned didn't work, and things like that just bothered you so much about Julius Randle. Could have been and should have been much more efficient had the Knicks used him properly, so you can make that argument too. Needs to be used off the ball more, not shot creating. Needs to be used as a screener, rolling to the rim and catching off of screens and things like that. So, all in all, I just think Julius Randle, a C+ season. He was all right, but he definitely hurt the team, at times, just as much as he helped them. So I have to give him a C+. And then for our starting center, Taj Gibson, I gave Taj Gibson a C+ as well. Okay, defense, some decent offense, does a nice job setting hard screens. So he's very good in pick and roll because he can set a hard screen and create space around him for other Knicks. Defensively, he was okay. Didn't really provide much of rim protection, but he was fine staying with his man. Occasionally, offensively, he'd stretch the floor, and he's an okay rebounder as well, but C+ for Taj Gibson. It kind of just got tiring watching him start center every single night. And then we get to the bench. Bobby Portis, I have him as a C-. Kind of jumped his grade up a little bit towards the end of the year because he caught a hot streak. But overall, he stunted the growth of the Knicks, of the Knicks youth, and it was kind of hard to watch. Didn't provide much defense as well. Very much like Randle on the defensive side of the floor without the strength. So, he provided occasional hot, bursts of offense with his shooting ability and his ability to, put in the jump hook into the post, which he so very often does, and it bothers me when it doesn't go in. He's very hit or miss out there. But a C- for Portis. Didn't think he was good. I thought overall he was just pretty lackluster. And outside of that hot streak at the end of the season, I just thought he was very underwhelming at best. Mitchell Robinson, another guy I want to really dive into a little bit here. Mitchell Robinson, man, I thought he was very good, especially at the end of the season when he got really hot. I gave him a B, a flat B, just like I gave RJ Barrett. I thought both of their impacts were similar. They impacted the Knicks very well, where they had some big flaws, but when they were on that court, they were so tremendous for the most part. 10 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, and all of that in 23 minutes a night. That's good. So we'll go over the pros and we'll go over the cons of his 2020 season. First pro I wrote down was his finishing. I thought he was excellent, right? He had the 74% field goal percentage, which obviously people were talking about him breaking Wilt Chamberlain's record of 73%. I'm not necessarily sure if he has enough attempts to make it official, so that kind of sucks, but 74% is nice. Obviously it speaks for itself. He dunked a lot, but hey, that's part of his game. He was very good at a pick and roll. His pick and roll game is on point. Freakish athleticism, which allowed him to throw down those acrobatic lobs in pick and roll and those dunks, and just came so easy to him just finishing at the rim. And he always, a big part of his finishing ability is because he's such a good offensive rebounder. He salvages poor possessions and missed shots with his offensive rebounding skills and with his length, his wingspan out there. He's so good at crashing the glass relentlessly, and he turned, 0 points into 2 points on a possession just like that. So I thought he did a very good job with the rebounding. He was 14th in the entire league in offensive rebounding per game with 3.0. 14th. Now, most of you would look at that and say that's decent, but every single guy, all 13 of the guys ahead of Mitchell, they average more minutes than him. A lot of those guys were averaging 30 minutes plus, and most of them were averaging at least over 25. Mitch is getting 23 out here. So to be 14th in offensive rebounding per game and not playing nearly as much minutes as the guys ahead of you, as most of those guys ahead of you, it's impressive to me, because his rebounding, again, 10, 7, and 2 guys, 10 points, 7 boards, 2 blocks in 23 minutes. Very good. But yeah, speaking of the shot blocking, that was great. But I also thought the shot altering was great. A lot of people forget about the shot altering. And you could talk about the blocks all you want, but he changed opinions of opposing drivers and shooters, where shot altering can change an entire attack. It changes an entire possession, an entire game plan because of his presence down in that paint. So I thought that was good. Not just the blocking, but the ability to just change possessions and make players think twice when going to the rack. But his perimeter defense is even good. I want to talk about that because I think Mitchell Robinson, and maybe I use this word too much, but I also think this is kind of overlooked with him, where he was very solid on the perimeter. He could block you on the inside, but he could also block your shots on the outside. We've seen that plenty times this season. But he also has the ability to block with either hand, and that's impressive too, because not many bigs have that skill set where they can block with either hand just as effectively. But he can do that, and he can also keep the ball inbounds when he blocks it. He's not one of those showcase, show-offs where he just blocks it into the crowd to hype up the crowd and all that shit. He keeps the ball inbounds. He blocks it to give his team a chance to grab the defensive rebound. So his defensive presence, great. His rebounding, terrific. His finishing, great. He does have his cons, though. Obviously we'll get to the big one in a sec, but I think, the screen setting, he sometimes Mitchell Robinson's, or a lot of the time, Mitchell Robinson will set a screen, and it's very lazy, soft. It kind of looks like he's uninterested at times when he's setting screens. He rolls too quickly. And you think he would have learned from somebody like Taj Gibson, who's very good at being a screener. But I still need to see more aggressiveness on screens, and maybe some, as he continues to grow as a player and gains more muscle and strength, he'll become a better screener. But I do want to make sure, I do want to point that out, that his screen setting wasn't necessarily great this season. And then his scoring package, again, he still scored 10 points about in 23 minutes, which, because he's so good at rolling to the rim and finishing down low. But he's going to need an outside shot. He doesn't offer anything. Doesn't offer much outside of dunking and throwing down the lob and crashing the boards, finishing. Offensively, he doesn't really have the jumper yet. Now, he has a fluid technique. I like the technique. We've seen him shoot at the free throw line, and it looks like he has the shot form. It looks like it's pretty smooth for a big to eventually become an adequate shooter for a big man. But we're going to have to see it. I think I counted all season. I maybe saw 2 jump shots from Mitchell Robinson this year. Both little tiny mid-range jumpers. Maybe, I think 2. I think I counted 2. And he said at the beginning of the year that he was going to start shooting some threes occasionally, but we didn't see a single three-pointer, only 2 mid-range. Eventually he's going to have to expand his game and develop a little bit of a shot out there, So I thought that was something he needs to work on. Screen setting, scoring package. But of course, the big thing here, the big con in Mitchell Robinson's game in 2020 continued to be defensive discipline. Now, the 4.1 personal fouls per 36 minutes was definitely better than the 5.7 per 36 last year. But at the same time, it's kind of marginal improvement. He still needs to hone craft in that area and stay on his feet, because a lot of these fouls are not legit fouls. They're not fouls that you should be getting. A lot of them are just cheap, dumb, ticky-tacky fouls where he just needs to learn to stay on his feet out there. Simple as that. And he also needs to realize that it's not the referee's fault every single time, because every time you see him foul out of a game, or every time Mitchell Robinson is going to the bench in foul trouble, he's always complaining with the ref. And you're a kid. This is a referee, an NBA referee. You can bitch and moan all you want, but you have no right to be complaining to a ref when you're in your second season and when you're actually legitimately fouling people because you can't stay on your feet. That's one thing that really bothered me about Mitchell Robinson this season. It's just not only the fact that he didn't really improve too much in that area, but the fact that he didn't recognize that he was fouling. And he's never going to improve in that area unless he takes it upon himself first and foremost. But if he keeps, for as long as he doesn't realize he's the one fouling and he needs to address it, he's not going to fix it. But again, though, overall, you take everything with in account. I still think he had a very strong, solid season, and he definitely took a step upward. One of the few Knicks who did from last season, and I gave him a B overall. And again, just like with Barrett, I think the Knicks need to learn to play him longer, play him more, start him for fucking shit's sake, and pair him with guys he needs to be paired with. We saw a very good tandem when he was out there with Kevin Knox, right? Those two play a nice pick and roll, and Kevin Knox has thrown them a number of lobs this season. The Knicks generate a lot of offense when those two are on the floor. Same goes for Frankie Ntilikina and Mitchell Robinson. Same goes for R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson. I think the Knicks' impact, in terms of results, playing better. Not only that, but it's just to gain chemistry, just all types of things like that to gain, to grow together and to learn how to play together as guys who are going to be here long term. So the Knicks have to do a better job themselves if they want Mitchell Robinson to improve. But again, overall, Mitch gets a B for me because I thought he played very good basketball for the Knicks. Then I have Damian Dotson down here with a B-. I thought he was good. Started the season a bit inconsistent and had his troubles shooting the ball because, again, the Knicks, I think a lot of that is on the Knicks for not consistently including Damian Dotson in this rotation. But I gave him a B-. A good shooter, good mid-range shooter, occasionally hits threes. Good off the dribble, can attack the rim pretty well. He displayed some speed, which we didn't really see much last year. And he continues to play competitive. If that's one word to describe him, I think it's competitive defense. I love the effort Damian Dotson gave on both ends. So B-. Frank Ntilikina, C+. Again, man. Part of the thing is he needs to be thrown out there more if the Knicks want to see his legitimacy. Play him more. Start the kid. Let him play out there, and he's shown a lot more. He showed a lot more aggressiveness this season, right? Because in the past we saw Frankie Ntilikina be very tentative and very conservative on the floor. But this season, while it wasn't necessarily great by any means, I think Frankie Ntilikina did show that he has that confidence in him now, more confidence in him to be that aggressive point guard, and he showed flashes of being a solid NBA player. He's got a long ways to go. A C+ isn't good, but at least he showed some progress this season in terms of not being afraid to shoot the ball and not being afraid to dig into his bag of tricks and come up with a couple of dribble moves on people and, use his crossover, use the step back, shoot a three when you're, slightly contested now. We saw some different things that we didn't see often from Frank offensively last season. Still want to see a better job of pushing the pace and running an aggressive point guard and getting everybody involved by not just passing the ball once you pass half court, but I want to see him, become more of a floor general and continue to play very, very good defense. He plays defense already great enough of a defender to where I think Frankie Ntilikina's floor can be a Tony Allen type. So I think his, just him playing defense alone is going to make him an impactful NBA player. But to take the next step and to at least be a solid NBA player, he's going to have to be thrown out there more often, and he's going to have to take it upon himself as well to improve offensively and become a better shooter and just be a better basketball scorer, I guess. Dennis Smith Jr. gave him a D-. Can't really say much. Didn't do well at all. Kevin Knox also gave him a D-. Very disappointing second season. Felt the Knicks should have definitely used him more. A lot of Bobby Portis, a lot of Wayne Ellington, when those minutes should have and could have been going to Kevin Knox. Unfortunately, they didn't, and Kevin Knox had many, many issues with consistency because of that. But a lot of it was on him. Low motor, doesn't always show the best effort, which is frustrating and annoying to see from such a young kid. Defense is not good. Offensive shooting has taken a hit. Sometimes it felt like he had a little bit too much of an arc on his jumper. Has shown at times the flashes to be a very good offensive player where he attacks the rim and puts the ball on the floor from outside the arc and just drives and takes it to the rack aggressively, but it wasn't enough. So overall, I just think combining his terrible defense, his lack of rebounding, his inconsistent shooting, can't really give him anything higher than a D-, guys. Maybe a D, but what's the difference at that point? D- for Kevin Knox. And then the last couple, Wayne Ellington, don't really want to talk about Wayne Ellington. Gave him a D. Alonzo Trier, I gave him a B-. Again, kind of like Dotson, hard to do much when you're not included in this rotation. How many games did he play? This guy missed over 20-something games. Maybe. He didn't play much. And I think for Alonzo Trier to be iced from the rotation after such a solid rookie season was just criminal. He's a guy who could score in bunches, and the Knicks lacked scoring this season. They lacked shooting, and he was a guy who brought that stuff. But the Knicks didn't use him. I understand he isolates a lot. I understand his defense is not much better than Kevin Knox's defense, but putting a guy like Alonzo Trier, a young kid, on the floor would have only helped this Knicks team rebuild the right way, and the Knicks couldn't do that. So a B- though when he was on the floor, because I thought he gave the Knicks enough to where his offense overshadowed his weaknesses, to give him a solid B-. But guys, I think I hit everybody here. We're almost 45 minutes into this episode. I told you it was going to be an in-depth episode of BD4, as this is the final report. This is the final time we'll be talking Knicks until the offseason, I'm pretty sure. So I don't know. It sucks. If this is it, then it sucks that we have to end another season kind of disappointed, But I thought they played well, man. No. That literally just came off the top of my head. They did not play well. I take that back. I did not think the Knicks played well, man. I don't know where that came from. Shit. They did not play well. Again, no. A D- for the New York Knicks. And once again, to go over all the grades, Peyton a C, Bullock a C-, RJ a B, Randall C+, Gibson C+, Robinson B, Portis C-, Dotson B-, Ntilikina C+, Smith Jr. D-, Knox D-, Ellington D, and Trier B-. So again, overall the Knicks as a team 21-45, D- because they couldn't win, they couldn't lose properly, player development awful, and just overall not really any kind of rebuild, to be honest with you all. But you look forward to the offseason. Maybe Maybe they can find somebody in the draft who can play a competent starting point guard for them, but I'm not so sure. It's hard for me to say because, I think I told you guys a couple shows ago that I'm not necessarily the college ball expert here, so I don't know who's out there. I don't know who could make them better in this upcoming draft. I don't know too much outside of LaMelo Ball, excuse me, outside of LaMelo Ball, Cole Anthony, and I don't even know much about them either, but I just know their names. I don't really know much about this college, this next class. But we'll see what happens in the offseason with the draft and free agency. Obviously, I don't want, if we're going to talk about the wants and needs, I want the Knicks to, the one thing I want them to do this offseason is to stay on course. Don't chase wins. Don't chase stars. Keep the goal of a rebuild in mind. Learn from your past mistakes. Learn from those previous mistakes. We know what I'm talking about. The Durant mistake, the Irving mistake. And don't go after anything stupid. I prefer not to trade for CP3. Don't give up assets. Maybe you can give up Randall for him, which would be fun. But I just feel like CP3 at this age, he's an injury risk. He's a solid player, but he is owed a lot of money, over $80 million the next 2 seasons. And I also feel like he's going to stunt the growth of whoever we draft and also guys like Frankie Lakina and Dennis Smith while he's here. I feel like we should just be playing as much as the kids as possible at this point, and there's really no point to add another veteran on this team who again is not even going to be a winning team. So you remember earlier, before the season began, before the 2019-20 season began, CP3 was kind of disgruntled and didn't want to play for OKC because he didn't think they'd be a contender. So what the hell, why would he want to, what makes you think he'll be motivated enough to play for the Knicks, who are not going to be a good team next season? They're not going to overachieve like OKC did. I wouldn't do that trade. I also wouldn't sign someone like DeRozan, somebody who relies on athleticism. I feel like at 31 years old, not the smartest thing to do. Also feel like it doesn't really improve our weaknesses, which, it's just adding fuel to the lack of shooting. He's not a good shooter. He can't shoot threes. He doesn't shoot enough threes. And we're trying to become a more modern team. Because that was another issue I didn't really mention, was the Knicks didn't shoot enough threes out there. They were dinosaurs. They defended well in the paint, and they scored well in the paint. But that was it. They literally were 1960s hoops players. So I just feel like going after somebody like CP3, not a great idea. Going after somebody like DeRozan doesn't necessarily mesh well with your other core pieces like RJ, who can't shoot himself right now. And I just feel like the Knicks should just stay on course, keep the rebuild in mind, and just be competent, man. Just be competent and get back on track. And hopefully one day we're watching a solid Knicks team. That's all I want. Just solid. But guys, thank you so much for stopping by. If you haven't yet, be sure to follow my page on Facebook and on Twitter, which is located at which is at NY Sports Talk RC. That is the handle for both my Facebook and Twitter pages. Once again, NY Sports Talk RC. Type that in on either platform, and you'll find my page, Rob Carbone. Also, find me on Instagram, Rob Carbone. The handle is at Rob J Carbone. And if you haven't yet subscribed to BD4, be sure to do so on all the major platforms. Platforms like iTunes, platforms like Google, SoundCloud, Spotify, Radio Public, YouTube, where the video cast is located, and plenty more. To get all these, to get all this information, right? To find my social media platforms, to find my podcast platforms, and to reach me, just go to my website to make it easier for you, which is located at nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com. Once again, that is nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com. Go there, click on the tab called Outlets, and it'll take you right to a page where it has everything you need to reach me and to follow me and subscribe and all that stuff. Guys, thank you so much. And I'm not necessarily sure. Probably a couple days from now, I'll have episode 2 out of Hibernation Frustration here on BD4. Where I stream a game from my PlayStation, and we'll just talk either basketball or Yankees and Knicks, MLB, whatever. But as for now, well, not Knicks. This is the last time we're talking Knicks for a bit. But, Hibernation Frustration, for those of you who don't know, is a new segment, a new little mini-series I'm starting here on BD4, where I just stream a video game, MLB The Show, or maybe NBA 2K, and we're going to talk about the state of baseball or the state of basketball, and things like that. It'll be fun. So look forward to episode 2 sometime, maybe this weekend, but if not this weekend, at the start of next week, because, hey, we've got nothing better to do. We're all quarantined right now. So, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been Rob Carbone, your host of BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Episode 90, Knicks Final Report. Guys, stay safe. Wash your fucking hands, and I'll see you next time. All right, ciao. Hey, we hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share, and all that fun stuff. If you want to follow BD4 on all the different platforms we have, all you have to do is go to my website, nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com. Once again, that's nysportstalkrc.wordpress.com. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time. Ciao.